Greetings and welcome back to Medieval Engineers Minion Village. That's right, we're back in Medieval Engineers for another build. This week we're going to build a blacksmith, or something like a blacksmith anyway. Well, hopefully it'll be a blacksmith. I guess we will have to wait and see, or at least you will have to wait and see. I am recording this in post, and I've just jumped into first person. And the reason I'm recording it in post is because, well, this build was done previously, prior to my holiday, in fact, and it suffered from the audio problems that plagued many of those. And of course, you know, these builds are often done with at least some post-commentary because it's just easier. Right, we need to decide where we're going to put it. So we could put it here, next to the inn, which is ultimately where it ends up going. The other option was, of course, to put it just down here, opposite the sort of the new housing section that I did, next to the temple and the well and stuff. And I almost put it there, but in the end I decided that the terrain was possibly slightly favourable next to the inn, and also I might do something more with the temple, like extend the temple grounds, or have some kind of I don't know, priest's village or something there. So in the end, this is where we decide to do the build, next to the old inn. And now, in order to build a blacksmith, what I did is I did a bit of Googling, which is often the way I start these builds. I just do a Google image search for whatever it is I'm thinking of building and get a bit of inspiration. And generally speaking, for a blacksmith, what you get is a kind of a main building with a roof jutting out at 90 degrees to the side, but it's just sort of suspended. It's effectively open to the elements. And so that's what we were going to go for. I went with a kind of a raised up off the ground floor, as it were, with these little steps, as you can see. I won't subject you to all of the builds. We'll do some cuts. There you go. That is sort of the initial fairly simple building. I mean, I've built many buildings like this. You don't need to see me go through the process of putting up a simple building like that each time. The only difference here is that it's raised up a little bit and it's got steps leading up to it, but that's pretty straightforward. Next thing I did was to level off the ground here where the kind of courtyard area is going to be, or where the kind of, I don't know, the outdoor sales area, I guess. The forging zone, I don't know what it's called, but whatever it's called, it's going here, and it needs to be largely flat, so we kind of level this off a little bit here. We end up using we're using just the square tool to kind of remove the land to begin with, and then we take the terrain level tool and we use that just to get a nice even level to the ground where we're going to put all the stuff, as you'll see later on. With that done, we take a look at the building. Now we need to build this kind of covered area sticking out, and this causes me no end of problems. As we've seen before, this can be quite tricky, sticking one roof section onto another, especially if you're not doing it necessarily at the same level. I'd like it to be a fairly large covered area, and initially I try sort of, you know, doing it off the side, as you can see, but you know, it's hopelessly low, far too low. And now I could obviously lower the terrain to make it manageable, and that's what I'm kind of pondering here at this point, but that would mean pushing the terrain lower than the surrounding sort of road and everything. So in the end, I decide, no, we'll try something else. As you can see, the sun is starting to set here, and so it's getting harder to see. So yeah, there we go. We use our magical wizard's powers to bring the sun back. And as you can see, I've kind of tried to create this sort of three-peak roof thing, which is all right, actually. To be honest with you, I might use this somewhere else. But on this particular build, it just wasn't sitting nicely with me, and it has this problem. Look, if you go inside, you've got these just sticking inside, in a rather ugly way, which, you know, you could hide, and we're not worrying too much about interiors at the moment. But ultimately, I decided to get rid of it. So I delete all of that, and I start again. As you can see here, we've skipped forward a little bit, and I'm trying a slightly higher up roof, and I'm trying it with a like a flat section to it, as you can see. But this as well is not ideal, actually, as it turns out. I've used this trick before in some other builds, but it's not perfect because it doesn't fit in nicely. One thing I would actually like to see is a kind of a flattened section, or different sort of angles on these roofs, so it's not all this sort of 45-degree roof angles. We could have some that are flatter and some that are steeper. Would be nice. Anyway, look, it didn't work. And so, never let it be said that when something doesn't work, I will keep battering away at it until I make it work. We just decided to bring the whole thing back down to the ground level, because what I decided in the end was, A, the building needed to be slightly bigger. So as you can see, we sort of expanded out here a little bit. And then also, we were going to have a second, or like a first story, if you will, of stone along the bottom, so that the whole building is going to be taller. Basically, we're going to add a whole story to this building, and the lower level is going to be stone, which I think makes more sense as well, because that's where a lot of the forging and stuff is going to be happening. And so, you know, hot flames and stuff, you would want stone, wouldn't you? So here we go. We build it up to the second level. We've also made it 4 wide instead of 3, but actually, after looking at it, I decide 3 is the right way to go. So we cut it back down, and here you can see the completed main building, at least structurally completed main building. 2 tiers of rock, and then a tier of sort of the normal wooden walls with a peaked roof on the top, as per normal. And this should give us the extra height we need. So we start building out the roof, as you can see, just kind of putting in those corner pieces where we can, and then adding these out. Now this does leave us with a little bit of an artifact, as you can see there, where the roofs sort of join a little bit awkwardly, and I don't think there's anything we can do about that. We're just going to have to live with it, with this sort of design. I'm more or less happy with this, so I decided to start working on the kind of framework to hold it up. This doesn't structurally hold it up, I don't think, at the moment in Medieval Engineers, but it does make it look an awful lot better, so we put that in. This can be a little bit tricky to work with sometimes, and as you can see, it's easy to make mistakes when you're working with these, sort of like trying to mesh the small block bits and the large block bits together. Anyway, we sort of duplicate the process on either side, and then we go for a crossbeam. You know, what could go wrong? Obviously, this has all been perfectly measured out by a master. Oh no, look, no, it hasn't. Yep, that's right. Our beams are not aligned. Our pillars are not aligned, whatever they're called. So we have to delete that and create a new one. Not a big deal, but these are the sorts of pitfalls that you will inevitably bang into when you build, as I do, more or less by the seat of your pants. And it's not the worst of the problems that we had during this build, I can assure you. I thought I'd experiment by putting this kind of like wrap-around bit here, just to kind of break the line up a little bit. In the end, I get rid of it. Actually, whilst watching it back, I'm wondering whether I might put that back in and go straight into another building, sort of butted right up against it, with effectively that as a corridor or a little alleyway between the two. But that's for another build. That's for next time. Back to the structure, we want to put in a central supporting beam and some sort of diagonal beams. It takes a little while to get this right, to get things lined up the way they should. And even then, these peaked roofs don't seem to fit very well together. I couldn't get an exact middle point. At least it didn't seem that I could get an exact middle point. So I kind of toy around with it quite a bit. I put in these diagonal beams, as you can see, to provide additional support. More down there. These diagonal beams are brilliant, actually, for just kind of making things look more structurally sound, even though, as I said, I don't think they actually do anything. I don't think the structural integrity applies to small blocks. I may be wrong, and obviously it may be in the future that it will. Anyway, as you can see, this is not perfectly aligned, and it rankles me. It irks me, it does, and I'm not quite sure how to fix it, because to bring the left-hand diagonal beam in, which is where I'd rather it be, so it's more in line with the lower diagonal beams, there would have to not be a beam in the middle. So in the end, I toy around and I just push the other beam out. So neither of them is perfectly aligned with the beam underneath, but at least they are misaligned by the same amount, if that makes sense. Anyway, it's a relatively minor detail, because that part is not highly visible most of the time anyway. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much. I added a little stair and a doorway in at some point. Yeah, there you go. That's kind of the completed outdoor structural area. Next thing, of course, is we need a furnace. So we start to build a furnace. And, well, I mean, initially we build it in here with the kind of... we use a window piece. The idea is just to have a kind of a hollow stone tube going up, or square tube, if there is such a thing as a square tube. I didn't like it sort of stuck out as it was a little bit, so I moved it along to the side here so that it can go up without having to go through the roof directly. It just kind of clips the roof and carries on up, which I think is better ultimately. And we just take it all the way up, out through the top. I'm not sure if this is actually how these things work in real life. I didn't really research furnaces in Blacksmith at all. I just assumed that it would be something like this. I mean, this is pretty much the best I could achieve in Medieval Engineers anyway, because there's nothing smaller that lets you build sort of more tight type chimneys and stuff. Obviously we need a fire in there, so I kind of place one and I try to place another, and obviously I can't place it on the grid, so I try and take it off the grid, and there is this difficulty here. As you can see, I'm trying to kind of do it through this window, but it just keeps being red. It's like I can't get it to place at all, unfortunately. So what is the solution to this? Well, clearly there is only one solution. Yep, delete it all and start again. But oh, what is this? Oh dear, I have been punished by structural integrity. Actually, to be fair, I hadn't intended to delete the entire thing in one go, but of course it was all one block. So deleting one wall deleted them all and left me... I mean, it shouldn't actually have collapsed as far as I can see. The rest of the building should have held it all up, but something went squirrely, obviously, with the structural integrity system, and everything fell to pieces. So, well, after quite a while, I'm quite glad, actually, that I'm not able to use the audio from the time. But after a while, I calmed down. I decided to complete this bottom bit. As you can see, I just piled up a bunch of fires. And then we set to work fixing everything. And there's quite a lot to fix, to be fair. I have to use the K menu to remove some rubble, and then just basically delete all the bits that have been damaged. And that involves, in the end, deleting basically most of it. And rebuilding it from the sort of second floor upwards. As you can see, it all has to go, and more bits fall down, and yeah, it was a disaster. But these disasters, they happen when you're building in Medieval Engineers. It's part of the fun, and actually next time I'm just going to need to be more careful and make sure that I put up some supports. I could have used some scaffolding and stuff to provide additional support, and next time I will. Right, so with pretty much the structural component complete, all that really remains is to do a bit of dressing, basically. So I put down, as you can see, some chests, some barrels. I wind up deleting that barrel because it's sort of placed in the ground. If you take the barrels off the grid and just place them as freestanding objects, it tends to work better anyway. Like, you know, they look a bit better. Sometimes they fall over or lean against things, which makes it look much more natural. Obviously, you need like an anvil, don't you, as well, in a blacksmith. A blacksmith needs an anvil. That's what I thought anyway. I couldn't really remember what an anvil looked like. I seem to remember it looking kind of like an ironing board, which is what I built. So hopefully I haven't actually looked up a picture of an anvil since then to double check that. Again, you know, you've got a fairly coarse material or grid to work with, and when you're building these things, that's the smallest sort of cube that we can do. But I think it worked out all right in the end. Next, of course, is some lighting. So we plop a few wall-mounted torches around the place just so that the blacksmith looks nice and sort of at least partially lit at night in the Minion village. And that's kind of, you know, from this point onwards, it's really just bits and pieces. You know, it's a bit more dressing here and there. As I look around, I kind of, you know, I'm saying to myself, what might fit in here? Because, you know, we need more stuff. I think, oh, okay, maybe a blacksmith would have, like, ingots on his table here. So I kind of place a couple of ingots. Again, I take them off the grid in order to have it so they're not just kind of, you know, at 90-degree angles. Likewise, plop down a couple of just random bits of machinery, basically. Just stuff to make it look like it's a bit more lived in and a bit more used. I really like these big wheels as well, like dumping wheels around the place. You'll see there's quite a few wheels dumped around the Minions sort of housing area as well. I thought I'd put one on here that could be, you know, what's actively being worked on at the moment. It does have a metal rim, you know, so it's not just a piece of wood. That barrel is meant to be the like the water that they, you know, dip things in. Blacksmiths, you know, whenever you see them hammering like a sword or something, they'll dip it in in water. I'm not a blacksmith, if you hadn't guessed. I've never trained as a blacksmith, nor do I know very much about it beyond what I have learned from TV and movies and such. But there you go, that is the Blacksmith, more or less complete. Well, I mean, as complete as I managed to get it at the time. This was kind of rushed, this build. I didn't have a lot of time to do it, and it's a relatively simple one. The most complicated bit is the joining of the roof section, and having that kind of like mix between outdoor and indoor. I will come back and do the interior at some point. I'll probably do an episode on interiors, as there's a few interiors that need to be done. Oh, as you can see, the two buildings are actually they're considered one entity, although they don't technically touch. The blocks do touch. So there you go. That is it. That is all for this Minion village. The Blacksmith is more or less complete. Next time, who knows what we'll build. If you have any suggestions or things you'd like to see, do let me know. But for now, I have been Weird Wizard. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and I will see you later. And you can look forward to more and greater builds in the Minion Village and indeed the Wonder Workshop coming very soon. Tomorrow, it is the ever-popular Weird Wednesday, where we will be taking, once again, a weird and or wonderful game out for a spin on the channel. And then, of course, Thursday, we'll be returning to the wonderful wizarding city of Wizardtopia for more cities skylines.